Welcome, I'm your host, Malcolm Gallagher, from our BizVision studios in the UK. You're watching the BVTV network. I've so much I want to talk about with my guest today. Leadership, coaching, workplace change, but maybe for another time, as I want to focus with her on one area, and that is on making meetings more effective. If we talk about wastefulness of both money and precious time, then wasteful meetings have to be, in my mind, at the top. And particularly at this particular time when people are working from home or hybrid. But how can leaders make meetings more productive, use them to produce better results, and move the business forward? Now, my guest has written a very clear an authoritative book. It's actually quite a magic book, as I'm holding up, as you can see, because this is the first time I've ever had a totally transparent book. But you get the answer for that later on. It's called Leading for Learning. Please meet the co-founder of ontosglobal, Lisa J Koss. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you, Malcolm.
Yeah,
Appreciate your time.
And magic book, isn't it? Look at it.
I love it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
You've never had such a book before in your life.
I've never had such a book. So it's a talking point. Okay, we'll be honest with our viewers and listeners and tell them it's because the green screen and the green around the book. I know I've given it away, haven't I?
Well, interestingly, that little piece of art is the sketch for what the model that's inside the book looks like, because there's a green and there's an orange and there's a blue. So this is actually the abstract version of what's represented inside the book.
Oh, no, can we not just stick with the magic book? Because there's a lot of great learning in here that will be magic for your business, I'm telling you. And you're not just sitting there with any old backdrop. You're in San Francisco, is that correct?
That's right. I'm in the Bay Area. I'm specifically in Berkeley, California, across the water from San Francisco. I can see San Francisco from my front window.
Oh, very nice. Yes. I left my heart there, but no, that's another song. Yeah. Lisa, there's so much in your book. There is a great value in learning for leaders. But in this interview, I want to focus on meetings in today's altered world. We are in a new business world, irrespective of whether people think or are not there. And in this BVTV interview, viewers and listeners, I'll be talking to Lisa in 3 parts. And as I say, we'll stay focused on meetings, but I'd love to delve into even more that's in her excellent book. We'll talk the 3 A's of agenda, absorption, and action. In part 1, I'll ask Lisa to talk about the importance of a clear agenda for a meeting. In part 2, with absorption, I want to ask her how to get team members involved and absorbing the meeting's objective. And in part 3, action, Lisa's thoughts on how to make a meeting truly productive and, importantly, cause action. But first, Lisa, can you briefly tell us who is Lisa J Koss and what promoted you to writing Leading for Learning, this magic book?
Well, I have been in the business of leadership development for 25 years. I love working with adults who are interested in learning and growing. One time I remember was thinking about, what is the kind of helping profession I want to be in? And I realized, what is a better place than working with people who want to learn and grow? It's something that I'm passionate about. Most people do want to grow. They want to better themselves. And so I got very interested in how I could play the best role possible in just really helping people evolve and be the best version of themselves.
Yeah, I like that, but there's a difference, isn't it? Most people want to grow, but then there's people who are committed to growing and will make every effort to grow. And those are the ones that are exciting to help, aren't they?
They are. And it's all about motivation and getting connected with motivation. And that's a key principle and a key topic in the book about, okay, we all know motivation is important. That's not new, but how we think about it, how we use it, how we leverage it is a real science and an art. And that's what that's what I think is if we can operationalize that, wouldn't that be great? And that's in fact what my book is actually about, is is to how do you get the motivation going in a conversation so that the business results and the development of people happen in the very same conversation. But I know that's not the topic for today. We're talking about meetings today, but I couldn't help it because you said the magic word of motivation.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be an old topic. It's actually a fresh topic when you have the right frame of mind and tool set.
Hey, listen, just between you and I, we're coming back at a later time to talk about motivation. Don't tell the audience that, will you?
Okay, I won't.
Okay.
I'm fine with moving on. Let's go.
Okay. Lisa, as I said in my opening piece, there's so much to chat about. Now, I want to keep the focus, though, on productive meetings. Mm-hmm. Let's move to part one, the preparation and the clear agenda. I've been to meetings, and I bet you have too, where the agenda is padded out and there's no clear focus. I come out exhausted and gloomy. And sometimes that's before it starts. So how does a meeting leader craft a clear agenda, and why do they need to do it?
There's lots of, if anybody Googles, agendas, I'm sure they would get, the top 7 things to think about. I'll take it from a different approach. Maybe something that is so simple that it's brilliant is my hope, that it creates an aha. And I would say, just very simply, number one, have one.
Yes, that's a good point. I never thought about that.
Number two, I would say, be very, very clear about what is your intention with the meeting. What is the business outcome? Sort of what did you need to have happen? And number two, what is the experience you want people to have? In other words, do you want people to feel alerted? Do you want people to feel connected? Do you want people to feel opportunity? What is the emotional, what is the experiential moment that you want to construct? Because if you have those two things, you already have a kind of guideline for how to run your meeting. In addition, I would say, instead of just a detailed point about, of course, we all know we can have a set of topics, but I would go further and just say, or maybe go less far and say, can you have a beginning? Can you have a middle? And can you have an end? Does that make sense to you, Malcolm, when I don't even give you more description than that? No,
that makes total sense. But what really makes sense to me is to have an end. I get fed up of those meetings you go to where they've got A or B at the end, any other business, and people drone on about their own particular agenda and something that's interest to them, which has probably got nothing to do with the meeting itself. And you all sort of feel, what did we achieve? Nothing. And that meeting becomes non-productive.
So that's very interesting, because in your experience, if that's what happens, then that would be part of your intention and may shape how you begin your meeting, maybe what you say, what's important to you. And so therefore your beginning becomes quite intentional. Today's meeting is about X. What we're not going to do is Y and Z.
Yeah.
So just having clarity about what you're trying to achieve. It's the same thing for a presentation. It can be the same thing for a meeting. What are you doing? And business leaders are good at this. When you think about it, what do we do when we get confused? We say, what's the objective? What are we trying to do here? And it's not different from a meeting to meeting perspective, which is just be clear on what you're doing and what you're not doing, and just have a beginning, have a middle, and have an end. And that is something.
I really hope people take that truly on board, Lisa, because I just, as I say, I think there's lots of poor meeting leaders in the world today. People who want to put it all down. We'll just go through, first of all, through the minutes of the last meeting. No, tell us what happened. Get on with it, as you say, beginning, middle, and end. I like that. Now, Lisa, just before we move on to part 2, I'd like to remind viewers and listeners of your URL, which viewers you can see on the screen behind me. For listeners across our podcast network, just let me spell that out for you. It's ontos, ONTOS, ontosglobal.com. What does ontosglobal.com do, by the way, Lisa?
We are in the business of helping organizations truly transform. We work on, unusually for a boutique business like ours, we work on both the behavioral side, which you can imagine already is executive development programs, it's coaching, but we also work on the structural side of things, where we can help organizations with their talent management in terms of helping them set up what success looks like in every function. We also do vision work around culture and what is the culture that was based on the neuroscience, which you recently interviewed my partner regarding that a couple of weeks ago. And so we both help organizations point toward where they want to go. We help them understand how to get there based on the new neuroscience of business, as well as from a behavioral perspective, how do we get the habits and how do we really become become more of ourselves, bring more of ourselves into work and be able to bring our talents forward. It's kind of it's both the soft and the technical side of people leadership that we do. So at ontosglobal.com, it's spelled out in 3 practice areas.
Yeah, I particularly like what you're saying about talent management, because before we started, I'll just tell viewers, we were chatting about business and the altered world. And here in the UK, research is showing that one in four, which is a huge amount of employees in the UK are looking to move because they've been so disappointed in the leadership during the pandemic, whether they've been working from home or hybrid, whatever it may be. So very poor talent management. So now Lisa's book, the magic book, remember the magic book here, is called Leading for Learning, How Managers Can Get Business Results Through Developmental Coaching and Inspire Deep Employee Commitment. It's published by Routledge. I like it. It's really good. And it's one of those ones where, you read a bit and then you sit back and think. So, Lisa, it's time for part 2 and our second A, which is absorption. Now, okay, I've manipulated the A's, but it's active participation in a meeting by team members so that they absorb the meeting, not just let it go over their heads. I guess this is even harder with virtual meetings to keep people engaged. You propose time for absorption and reflection. Tell us your thinking and ideas here.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that happens, especially in this COVID world where everybody is doing, meeting after meeting after meeting, many times video calls, which they've never done before, can be exhausting. And it goes back to back to back, maybe more than ever before. And so the one thing that I'm hearing from clients is that there's not any breaks. They're working longer hours than ever. So one of the challenges for leaders who kick off meetings is that people are not actually present. They're not actually with you. So when they begin a conversation or you begin a meeting, their mind is still on what they just did. They probably didn't fully write down what they needed to do from their last meeting. They're probably a little overwhelmed. Their brain and heart is still over there. And so one of the things that leaders must do is to create a space to have people fully close their last experience before they can be fully present in this experience. And this is just, this is a discipline because we all want to get to it. But yet we need to think about this as time well spent, not time lost. And so when you might start, for example, I talked a minute ago about beginning, middle, and end. Part of the beginning is closing what happened last for people in their minds. And so you might ask something like, well, what's sticking with you from your last meeting? Is there anything that you need to say or do so you can be fully present in this meeting? You might want to just give people a space to say, where they're coming from, or just, what are they aware of as they begin? So in my field of work, where I might begin a session, is to kind of do something that might be a little unusual for some leaders and just say, welcome everybody to the meeting, and just say, I just want to hear from each person about, what's on your mind as we begin. What are you aware of right now about yourself as we begin? With a tough question, it's kind of a tough question because it means I need to check in with myself. And in doing so, what happens, hopefully, is that people become more aware of what's going on. And what's the good of that? Because once I'm aware that I'm distracted, or once I'm aware that I haven't written down something I need to do, or once that I'm aware of how I feel, I have a choice that I can actually be present right now and do that thing, or finish that thought, or write that down, or just be aware that I'm distracted, and that way I can make a choice about whether to stay in that place or actually show up and be present. And so as a leader, I might say, thank you for sharing that, all 5 of you, that was great. I'm now asking you to be with me here now.
Yeah. Can I just ask then, I just love what you're talking about there, but do people want to be engaged with meetings, or do they feel that, I'm just here to make up the numbers, I'll just sit and quietly wait till it's all over? Do you think most people want to be engaged?
I think people want to be engaged and have a great day. What I think is that it's a leader's opportunity to make that meeting among the best moments of another's day. So in other words, if I stop and ask you to reflect about what you're learning here, if I create a moment that's meaningful, it's my opportunity to do that. If I can create a moment that's meaningful, then you will feel good about coming on calls with me. When you come and talk with me, you're going to have a positive experience. It's going to be meaningful. You will be engaged. I care about you, and I care about what you want, what your day looks like, and how I'm a part of it. I become a placeholder for somebody with whom I look forward to. I look forward to talking to you. It's an experience as a leader that I'm trying to create.
Yeah, brilliant. Lisa, now for part 3. And my third A, which is action. I'm actually going to slip in a little extra question before I tell you about the part 3, because what do you hope that people gain from reading this book?
What do I hope they gain? I hope they gain confidence that they can actually lead people with more confidence. I have watched thousands of people have conversations with their direct reports, beating around the bush, going around and around, not getting the results they want. And it's all because they're missing either the what or the how. They just don't know how to have these conversations. So what I'm hoping is that every reader not only looks at this, it's not a very large book. It shouldn't intimidate. I didn't want it to intimidate. It's about 130 pages, and it's got sections step by step. And all I want is that people find a solution, or sort of find a way to consider how they might speak with people in a way that gets them more business results and gets people more committed and engaged. It is very possible to do it. And it's just a matter of understanding it and practicing. And we have a workshop that goes with this book. That's a 2-day workshop to help get that practice going. And my goal there is the same, which is come practice with us. We're going to role play real situations, and you're going to leave with the confidence that you need in order to shift and change these conversations, just to make them better, to make life easier, to make those conversations go well. And there's nothing more than, tools to help you lead in a more effective, in an effective way. And it's accelerating your learning around how to lead people, because people just don't get trained. They don't really know what they're doing, and they're promoted because they're technical experts, and they've never really had the training about what does that mean when I now need to lead 10 people or 20 people or even 1,000. What does it mean to be a manager of managers? What does it mean to have this role? and people just get promoted, and there's no help. And so this is what I want to do.
Lisa, I love your passion and your objective with the book. That's really great. So, which leads us in obviously into the third A, which is action. As I said in my opening piece, so many meetings are wasteful, and in my mind, not only does that cost money and everything, but they don't lead to action. They lead to actually disappointment and disgruntlement or whatever it may be. So all too often I've heard that, well, we'll have a meeting about this meeting or some other unproductive phase. How can that wastefulness be avoided? And how can the meeting leader align everyone to agreed action?
Yes. This is interesting, because every leader, I'm hearing your particular challenges and what you've seen in the past. And leaders have all kinds of problems regarding leaders and around meetings and meetings about meetings and somebody just told me the other day that they had 8 meetings to prepare for a meeting with a head honcho, and that those 8 meetings were entirely frustrating because it was all about risk avoidance.
Yeah.
There's lots of things that go on with meetings, and each one is its unique case. But here's how I would answer your question. Part of a meeting is to get a clear agenda and to accomplish something about something that needs to be solved. But the way to do that is to actually have a great handle on process. And now that sounds very sort of, I don't know, maybe sounds unclear. What does that mean? So what does that mean? That means that what a leader can do is to go back and forth between what I call task and process, meaning what we talked earlier about, like doing a check-in, and you can also do like a checkout, which is to see, where people are at as they begin a meeting and where are they at as they finish a meeting. That is a gauge to understand if people are with you at the beginning and where they are at the end. That is information. That is data. Why is it important? Because people need to be engaged with what you're saying, or otherwise something's not working. If we don't check in along the way, beginning, middle, and end, with where people are at and how they feel as you go, you are operating without enough information. You're just driving through the agenda topics. It doesn't make sense. And so a truly effective meeting is when the leader understands that they are to go back and forth between task and process, when to get input and when to drive forward, when to ask a question and put it out there and when to come back. So this is not only important for understanding where people on the call, on the meeting, where they are. It's about addressing the concerns that they're holding inside. This is about helping people feel engaged. It's about utilizing the information in the room. And so there's all kinds of ways to do that. And it helps people walk away from meetings saying, that was a good use of my time. I was heard, I was informed, I know what's what. So there's this piece about being able to construct an agenda, which is in a way that allows for the best outcome possible. And it means going back and forth to drive both what's going on experientially with people as well as the information being transmitted.
Brilliant. And I'm sure that people follow this book, then their meetings will then become energized and the people that's involved will become energized. In this short interview, I've only managed to scratch the surface of the excellent content in this magic book, Leading for Learning by Lisa J Koss. But I trust that our focus on productive meetings has been of value to you. After we've finished, I'm going to try and persuade her to come back again with us. There's more in the book. Thanks, Lisa, for a great interview.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the time. It's been fun.